Hello everyone. In the previous video, we looked at the Quranic prophecy and how the Quran talks about the Israelites and the fact that in the future, after Allah brings them back from all over the world and plants them in what we know today as the Holy Land, they become haughty or arrogant, or as I mentioned, arrogantly above the law, to the point that basically the normal laws that exist in the world in terms of international laws, criminal laws, a lot of them won't apply to them. Today in this video, I would like to actually share more Quranic examples to hopefully add to your knowledge. Let's look at verse number 4 of chapter 28. It says, indeed, Pharaoh exalted himself. The word it uses is ala fil arz. This is the exact same word that I explained to you in my previous video. If you have not watched it, I'm going to put the link here and also down in the description so you can go and watch it. So what does that mean? Inna fir'auna ala fil arz. It means Pharaoh became haughty in the land, arrogant. Again, above the law. Basically, he did whatever he wanted to do without anyone being able to object to it. So he had a free hand in doing whatever crimes he wanted to commit. Basically divided its people of the land into subservient groups, and then he would keep a group of them weak. He would kill their sons, basically slaughtering their sons, and keeping their women alive. And then Allah says, إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. He was truly one of the corruptors, those who commit corruption on earth. And then Allah says, and it is our will to favor those who were oppressed in the land. Everything here is past tense until you get here. Then Allah here says, وَنُرِيدُ. It means that we want to do it. We will to do it. Allah doesn't say here, aratto. Aratto would have meant I willed it in the past. But Allah here says, nurido. It means I want to do it. This is an action that is continuous. I will continue doing this. So Allah basically is telling us this is something that I'm going to do again. I'm stepping into Quranic prophecy a little bit here. With everything that is going on in the world, you should know this. Anyone who believes in the Quran should know this. Everything here in this verse was past up until we crossed here. Here, what does Allah say? It says, وَنُرِيدُ. It's a mudari'. It means that we will to do it. Basically, it is my will, and this has not completed. This is how I do it in the world. What does He want to do? What is Allah's continuous will? To نَمُنُّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. To favor those who are oppressed in the land. And then again here, what is this? نَجْعَلُهُمْ مُضَارِعٍ. It means this action is not completed, it's continuous. Allah is going to do it again. وَنَجْعَلُهُمْ. And we will put them أَئِمَّةً, basically leaders, وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And we will make them inheritors or successors in the land, those who basically inherit the land. So everything up there was past, everything down here is continuous, mudari, present, the action is going to continue. So Allah is going to do it again. So keep that in mind. We are going to go to the next verses. So Moses entered the city at a time of inattention by its people. Nobody knew, and found therein two men fighting, one from his shi'atihi, one from his faction, his party, his sect, his group. So Moses at this point has a group. So the question that you should ask yourself, what kind of a group Moses had, right? And we're going to get to that. So there were two men fighting. Hazam and Shiatehi, one from his group. Hazam and Adoweh, the other one was from his enemy. So Moses is part of a group. They have an enemy. فَاسْتَغَاثَهُ الَّذِي مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ عَلَى الَّذِي مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. So the man who is from his group calls for Moses' help against the one that is an enemy to Moses. What does Moses do? فَفَكَذَهُ مُوسَى. Moses punches him. فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ. And the guy dies. Technically, Moses, according to today's standards, according to our standards, Prophet Moses was a terrorist. I take refuge in Allah from saying that, but this is before Moses was appointed as a prophet. Remember, here at this point, Moses is young. He's seeing his people suffer. So he's fighting against the Egyptians. I told you above what Egyptians were doing. They were killing the Israelites. They were killing their sons, they were killing their men, and they were keeping the women alive. So Moses was a freedom fighter, according to the Israelites, but a terrorist according to the Egyptians. So I want you to know that. So Moses had a terrorist group he was working with. So now let's look at the next verse. So, and he came to the city, خائفا. He was very fearful and anticipating. He was just very cautious, very careful. But what happens is that, again, the same person who had called for him to help him calls him again, yells out, screams out, Moses, come help me. And again, he's fighting with an Egyptian. So he wants to bring Moses so that Moses punches that other Egyptian again and then kills this other person as well. Moses at this point tells this man that, oh my goodness, there's definitely something, there's something wrong with you. But Moses, given that he's part of the group that is fighting the Egyptians, and he most probably is the leader of that group, he feels that responsibility and he wants to go and actually punch that guy again, punch that Egyptian guy again. And if he had done this, that Egyptian guy, it would be the second man Moses would have killed. This is not an accidental murder. He's actually getting involved in a fight. He's very strong. He's punching these people and killing them. So this would have been his second murder. However, the Egyptian man at this point talks and says, أَتُرِيدُ أَن تَقْتُلَنِي? Do you want to kill me? Just like in the kama, it means just like in the exact same manner that you killed someone yesterday. Basically, do you want to punch me and do you want to kill me too? And then the man tells Moses, you only want to be a tyrant, an oppressor in the land. You don't want to be a peacemaker. And then at this point, Moses is shocked. Moses realizes that the Egyptians know that he's secretly part of this terrorist group fighting against them. And at this point, a man comes from the faraway part of the city and says, oh Moses, run away because top Egyptians have gathered together and they want to kill you. And then when he turns towards Madian, where Shu'aib, Allah's messenger, is, he says that perhaps my Lord will guide me to the right way. Telling us that basically Moses, before going to Shu'aib, was in the wrong path. Just like many of the current Muslims are in the wrong path. So he was also in the wrong path. As you can see, he was engaging in violence. He was part of a group that, per the Egyptians, was considered of al-ashrar, or the terrorists, and he was fighting against the Egyptians, and Egyptians had the upper hand, and he actually killed one of them, and he almost killed a second person as well. He almost killed a second person. And there's another verse in the Quran that Moses is talking to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, you killed one of us, and we raised you up, and you killed us. And Moses tells Pharaoh that he was menad dalin, from those who had deviated from the right path. He was led astray. He was one of those who had gone astray. And then the next verse I want to share with you is verse number 83 of chapter 10. And again, it's talking about Pharaoh. It says, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ لَعَالٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Pharaoh was haughty in the land, above the law, and he was one of the transgressors. So this is two verses that Allah talks about Pharaoh. Pharaoh and his people, Pharaoh and his army, Pharaoh and his generals, they were haughty, they were above the law. They were doing everything they wanted and nobody could do anything about it. They were massacring the children, the women, the men. They could kill anyone they wanted and no one could object. Now, is that situation similar to what is happening between the Israelites and the Palestinians right now? The other thing I wanted to share with you is verse number 75 of chapter 38. When Allah is talking to the devil, it says, "O Iblis, ma manaka, what prevented you, O devil, O Lucifer, what prevented you from prostrating to that which I created with my hands? Am kunta min al-alin, were you from amongst those that are alin, those you are haughty, you're arrogant, you're above everyone else? Are you better than anyone else?" Basically, things that apply to other people, basically Allah's law that applied to all the angels, archangels, and all the residents of heavens doesn't apply to Iblis. That's why Allah is telling you, hey, are you one of the Aleen? Are you one of those that my law doesn't apply to him? This is a very important word. This word has been used for Pharaoh and also for Iblis, for the Israelites, for Allah's prophecy about the Israelites. So it has been used for three groups. First person it has been used is the Iblis. Again, this verse I shared with you, and there are other verses as well. So Iblis was one of the Aleen. Basically said that, hey, I'm above your law. It doesn't apply to me. I am not going to prostrate to Adam. So that is Iblis. That's the first one. The second one that this word has been used for is Pharaoh. We just went over two verses of that. Inna fir'auna ala fil arz. Pharaoh became haughty, arrogant, above the law on earth. And Allah uses it again for the Egyptians. So Pharaoh and his army were above the law. They were causing corruption on earth. And the third case that it uses it is for an end time prophecy in the Quran. You have to watch the videos I have made about that, and especially the video that I've made about the state of Israel in the Quran, as promised by Allah. Allah uses for the Israelites, it's an end time prophecy. What does Allah says? La ta'alunna uluwan kabira. This is the verse actually. It says, Wa la ta'alunna uluwan kabira. I explained that in the previous video. It says, you become arrogantly above the law at a huge degree. Uluwan kabira, at a huge degree. Remember, when Allah is using that for Iblis, He doesn't use uluwan kabira. But here it says, وَلَا تَعَلُنَّ uluwan kabira. It means the degree will be higher than that of the Egyptians. And that's exactly what you're seeing unfolding today. But why am I saying this? Why is this important? The reason why this is important is this verse. I want to share that with you again. I shared it with you, but we're going to go over it one more time and you're going to understand it much better. Okay, this is the verse that we talked about, right? What does it say? Again, I told you everything is past in the previous verse. Then it gets here, Allah turns into mudari. Basically, Allah is telling you that this is my will. I'm going to do this again. It says, وَنُرِيدُ, I want to do this. And namunna, to do favor, to bestow favor on those who are weak on earth, who are being kept weak on earth. Just like the Israelites were being kept weak on earth by the Egyptians, were being oppressed by the Egyptians. وَنَجْعَلُهُمْ, again, what is this verse? Modar, this verse is present technically, or modare. Allah says, I want to make them the leaders, and I want, again, the same thing, to make them the inheritors of land. Basically, Allah is saying that this is going to happen again. This scenario is going to happen again, and in that scenario that it happens again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Now, how does Allah do this? Just like the first time. How did Allah do it the first time? Allah sent Moses, his messenger, his prophet, to guide and lead and save the Israelites out of the hand of their oppressor. The same thing is going to happen. I don't know when. It might be 500 years from now. It might be tomorrow. It might be 1,000 years from now. I have no idea. All I know is that I'm translating the Quran and teaching you what the Quran tells us. I don't know when it's going to happen. I have no idea. But Quran tells us it's going to happen, and Allah is going to send his messenger of the covenant, his messenger that is going to accomplish this. And up until then, all this violence, all this bloodshed, according to the Quran, is not going to get anywhere. Peace and blessings to all of you.